Hello and welcome to part 4 of the Submarine tutorial series. This is David Ward. When last I left you, we'd got the basic material texture map for the submarine ready to go. I'd like to make a few edits with the rivets, make them a little smaller. Aside from that, let's get in and work on the eyes. That's the meat and potatoes of this main tutorial. The reason I wanted to do it in the first place, to show you guys how I did that. So first thing we need to do is jump into Photoshop, and apologize if you don't have Photoshop, if you have GIMP or something, but the Photoshop Cloud, the CC Cloud Suite, whatever, it's actually fairly affordable now. I don't have it myself, but I still have CS5, I believe. Excuse me. In any case, let's create a new image here, and I'm going to set it to pixels, and let's say 1500 pixels wide by 500 tall. So we'll say OK, and that should be about right. Now, this is going to be our main eye canvas here. So I'm going to actually create the eye material, the iris material, on a new one. So I'm going to just say new, and I guess I'll just keep those same dimensions. But the colors of the eye, I'm going to go ahead and set the colors to kind of a royal blue, and then it's more of a darkish navy blue type of thing. Then I'm going to go filter, render, fibers, and set the variance. Let's see, yeah, set the variance down to 0, set the strength all the way up to 64. We'll say OK, and that should render shortly as soon as it calculates all that mess. Oh, good. Looks like it's locked up. Let me pause recording while that finishes up whatever it's doing. So stand by. Okay, never mind. Okay, so now you can see we have kind of a nice iris type looking thing here. So I'm going to duplicate this, and I'm going to scale it negative 100% there. So it's the same on both sides, and then I'm going to go ahead and delete some of it here, so it makes a nice loop once it gets over to this side, if that makes sense. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and merge that down. Alright, now I'm going to bring this into this layer, and I'm going to edit, transform, warp, and I'm going to use one of the preset warps. We're going to say, I guess, is there one called bend? No. I guess just arc. Yeah, there we go. And set it to 100%. There we go. And maybe zoom out a little bit. Okay, so we'll just enter in that, and then scale it down. Oops, I hit Control Y on accident, turned it into CMYK. Okay, so Control T, scale that down. There we go. This is going to be our half circle. So we'll scale that down and then flip it vertically. Actually, not on the Y, on the H there. Okay. There we go. And then we'll duplicate both of those. Actually, let's merge those together. And we'll duplicate them. Control T, scale it down till it fits inside there. About like so. Then maybe one more time. Just duplicate that layer. Scale it down. Okay. So now I'm going to put a black circle. So it didn't really have to be a circle, just something that we can color black underneath there. We've already got the circle set. Then we'll grab this outer one and add a stroke to it. Fairly thick. Like so. And that's not really perfectly round like I would like, honestly. So what I'm going to do is actually just grab that black iris, or black pupil, and just scale it up, because that's perfectly circular, what we want, and then just center it where it needs to go, like so. And then just set all these excuse me, to be a vector mask, or clipping mask, excuse me, and then set that stroke to that instead. So let's select all those, move them a little bit more This guy's kind of... my microphone cord's in the way again. Let's make that a little smaller. It's getting some overlap there. Okay. And then therefore, for that matter, let's go ahead and drag our pupil up a little higher. And then maybe make it a little smaller so it's perfectly circular there. Okay, so that's roughly a nice, decent looking iris. And we could clean it up a little bit more. Just get our soft eraser here and just softly... It's going to be a little difficult. But we can erase the edge there so it's not a harsh transition. And then just go ahead and scale that back up a little. And then do the same thing on that other one. Scale it up. And lightly erase the edge there. Maybe just grab that pupil and make it even bigger. Okay, so that'll work. Move it over just a bit. I'd like to make this blue a little bit brighter. So I'm just going to go ahead and merge all those layers there. And let's go to our image adjustments, hue saturation. And we can change the lightness of it. Maybe the saturation a little more. Maybe a little bit more of a greenish, bluish tint. We'll say OK. And then let's grab the brightness contrast. Set the contrast up quite a bit. If we go to legacy, that'll give us a little bit more control over the actual contrast. So about right there, I think will be fine. Okay, so now we have our eye. Now, the secret to doing this, at least the way I did it, was to just put both irises on one image. Now, when I first did it 8 or 7.5 years ago, I used 2 separate images, but I found that the way I do it now, you get some weird overlaps with the edges of the PNG, even if it's transparent, and it just doesn't want to work very well. So I found that it's a lot easier if you just put both irises onto one image. So we'll just bring this over here, and that stroke needs to be a little smaller now. Maybe about like so. So this is 50%. Let's zoom in here to 100%, make sure it's still going to look good. That should be fine. So we'll just zoom out here and just duplicate that over to there. And let's hit Control R, so we bring up our rulers here and say %. Let's put a divider here in the halfway mark, and then one this way as well. 50%. So let's center these all up. Just Control T, you can get that center place centered up like so. Okay, so this will be our irises. So I'm going to go Control Shift S and go ahead and name this irises. Submarine irises. Go ahead and save that. And I'm going to go ahead and save as a JPEG. Okay, go ahead and save that. And OK. Now, another thing I want to do is make these bump maps as well. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and collapse, or go ahead and merge each iris into one piece. So you can see they're both one layer there. And I'm going to add in a gradient overlay, kind of like we did on the rivets, the radial overlay. So like so. Okay. And then duplicate that over to the other one, like so. Okay, so then I'll go ahead and save this as a JPEG. No, JPEG. There we go. And this will be Submarine Irises, and I'll say bump after that. So we'll go ahead and save that. And OK. Okay, back to Blender. Now we'll Alt-H, unhide our eye surface. And I'm going to go ahead and grab those eyelids and keep those hidden. And let's, instead of rendered view, let's just go to material view, or actually texture view, I guess. For some reason, it's not wanting to show that again. Huh. Not sure why. It's not showing that. That's weird. Tell you what, let me, that should be showing the material there. I'm not sure why it's not. Let me pause recording. I'm going to close Blender out and open it back up and see if that fixed anything. So I'll be right back. Okay, looks like I figured it out. I guess it was when I was exporting it from Photoshop, when I was just Control-Shift-S and changing the format. And here, apparently it didn't want to save it correctly. So I just do Control-Alt-Shift-S, and that'll save for web. And it saves it correctly as a JPEG there. And then also the file size is significantly smaller, where it was like 5 megabytes. Now it's only 500 kilobytes, so it's like 10% smaller. Okay, so anyways, that loads properly now. Also went ahead and saved out the iris texture map the same way. Okay, so now let's hide our the lattice, and we'll tab into edit mode with our windshield selected, and go U unwrap. So we got an unwrap texture map, and we're gonna we'll go ahead and open up our submarine irises.jpg. There we go. And go ahead and create a new material for them. And I guess we need to go ahead and set that all up in here. Node editor. Bring in a texture map, image texture. Connect the color to color, and then click the little thumbnail. Say submarine irises. There we go. Okay, now it looks a little weird because it's mapped on there according to the square windshield, but we'll fix that with what's called the UV Projection Modifier. So we'll go to our modifiers and add in under Modify UV Project. Okay, and we're going to choose the submarine irises. And we don't have anything projecting right now, so let's put an empty in here. Let's put our Shift S cursor to selected, so we've got our 3D cursor right there in front of the eye area. I'm going to go Shift A, and I'm going to add an empty. So it'll just be a plain axis empty. Let's drag that out here. And now grab your windshield again, if you can grab it. Okay. Oops. Back to texture view. And now we'll go back to the. It is selected, isn't it? Windshield? Yes. Where's my... Oh, okay. Blah, blah, blah. Getting crazy. Okay, so we just want the one projector, and it's going to be the empty. So we'll go ahead and grab that empty, and I'm going to change the name of it to be eye controller underscore empty. Okay. So now, nothing's happening because we have to tell the UV projection to override the default images. Excuse me, and it's not showing up here. I think under material it shows up there. It's weird. So we have to scale the empty down, going SY and scaling it down there. Maybe rotating it. Rotate it -90 degrees on the x-axis. I'm going to scale it on the z-axis then. You can scale it up if you want it bigger. Just until it looks correct. And then wherever you move it, they'll follow along with it. So it's kind of skews them out, so it's not perfect. Let me change the order of these modifiers. Collapse them. Bump that up. So if you scale it, if you put it the modifier at the very top before the lattice deformer, it'll behave a little better. So we scale it on the x-axis there. You can see then it goes where it needs to go. So we'll just make it a little smaller. Now, the reason I gave it so much room around it rather than just cropping it, like go back to Photoshop and open that back up. Which one was it? There. Instead of just cropping it directly around the eyes like so, it would repeat. It would tile it, and it would be, it wouldn't work. So I gave it all this extra space around it so that we can move it around and not have to worry about that showing back up on the image. Because if you keep moving it, it'll still tile it, but it doesn't seem like it because it has such a wide white space around it. Okay, now let's clear out the position of the controller there, and maybe scale it on the excuse me, on the x-axis. What a froggy throat all of a sudden. Okay, so now that looks okay. You've got the iris on there. You can animate it, whatever. But what makes it look real cool is to have the glossiness on it and make it look like it's really, you know, visible, realistic, lifelike irises. So the way we can do that, let me clear my throat here. I'm sorry. Okay, maybe that'll work. Somehow Blender got offset from my recorder. Okay, so now to get that indentation there, you know, where the eyelids the irises are kind of concave, we're going to add in another texture, image texture, and this one's going to be those the bump map we created. So Submarine irises bumps. Go ahead and open that up, and let's go ahead and go. I guess we're already to material, but if we go to texture, we can see the shadows. I guess if we go to rendered, we can see the shadows a little better. Okay, so now what we want to do is change this, make sure, actually I guess we can just run the color to the displacement, and you can see it kind of adds where the light's coming from this way. It makes the eyes look more realistic. So in order to make that work with the excuse me, the glossy lenses as well, is basically the same thing. I'm going to go back to solid view, and we're going to tab into edit mode with our windshield selected here and move it slightly backwards just a tiny bit. And then I'm going to duplicate it, Shift D, and we're going to call this windshield glossy, I guess. We'll tab into edit mode and move that slightly forward. We don't want to go too far because remember we have the eyelids that are also going to come down on top of that. So now we got two different layers there. We zoom in real tight, you can see there's one there, there's one there. This one here is the color layer with the image texture and the indentation, the concave irises, and then this one's going to be the convex lenses. So this one needs to be transparent and glossy. So what we got to do to make it so it doesn't throw a shadow, go to our object here, scroll down to ray visibility, turn off transmission and shadow. Now we'll come over here and go ahead and get rid of this diffuse BSDF and go ahead and get rid of that image. We're going to add in a mix shader first of all. Go ahead and run that to the surface. And then we're going to add in a transparent BSDF, and we'll add in a glossy. Where's that at? Glossy, 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 glossy. There. You could add in a glass one if you want, but that might add in extra render times for calculating the refractions and things like that. So this is a good easy way to add a transparent glossy, so you don't need anything refracted. So we'll just add those together. Should be good to go there. And let's go ahead and come over here in our 3D viewport. I'm going to hit T to get rid of the toolbar and hit N to get rid of the properties so I can see the window a little better. And we'll go back to rendered view. And you can see right now it's set to 50-50% transparent versus glossy. So I want it to be almost all the way transparent. So I'm going to go 0.95, and I think that's... Oh, okay. It's doing both. I didn't create a new material for this new layer, so what I need to do, let's come back out to solid view so it acts a little quicker. What is going on? Not texture paint. There we go. So material. Let's just we'll call this one windshield eyes. Okay, and then select the windshield glossy, because that was already selected. Hit the little 2 right there and it'll create a duplicate material. So we'll just call this one windshield glossy. Okay, so now we need to go back to the windshield eyes and fix the things we deleted. So add in the diffuse BSDF to the surface, and then we can just duplicate this image to the color and then just change the submarine irises. So there we go. Okay, back to rendered view. Alright, so now we're getting somewhere. So let's go ahead and select the windshield glossy again, and we need to add in a color invert. So pop that boom right there, and you can see now we have the glossiness on top of the irises. So that looks pretty cool. But it doesn't quite look Pixar-ish. We could play with this a little bit and set the roughness down to, say, 0.05 or something. Give it a nice glossy gloss. But, I mean, that looks okay. But one thing that we can do that makes it look a little better is instead of a glossy BSDF, we add in a toon, right there, toon BSDF, and change the diffuse to glossy, and use that instead of the glossy BSDF. Use the toon, if I click and drag it there, you see it gives us a nice bigger area. So I'm going to set the size to 0.05. Actually, that's a little too small. Say 0.1. And it'll be a nice, more cartoonish, I guess you could say. It's what it's for. Instead of a fade-out reflection, it's just more of a white solid color. So I'm going to set this, say 0.2, see what that looks like. That's not quite enough, so maybe 0.15. I think that'll probably work. Okay, so that's our eyes there. And that's looking pretty good, I think. Then if we grab that empty, you can't see it here in rendered view, but if we grab the eye controller empty, move it around, you can see it follows along. And since our surface is curved quite a bit, honestly, it would be better if the curve was more natural rather than relying on the lattice. So let me play with that. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to pause recording just in case this doesn't work. Go ahead and save it just in case. But let me test that out real quick. I should have done it before recording, but you know, hindsight's 20/20. Let me test that out and see if that works a little better. If not, we'll come back. So stand by. Okay, upon playing with it a little bit, found really the only solution is to I'll tell you what it is. Right now, the way this is working is it's projecting the texture onto the surface, kind of like if you do a UV project, like if you were tabbing into edit mode and you go U, instead of unwrapping, you went project from view. It's basically the same type of thing. It's projecting that texture from whatever object you're using. In this case, you can see it's that eye controller empty. So it's projecting that texture from here. So wherever we move it, it's still projecting it. So it looks fine from the front, essentially, but then you get to the sides, it smears it out. So one thing that helps a little bit on that is if we go ahead and pump that lattice to the very top, and then we can scale this like so. But then, excuse me, it still skews it here and there. But the best solution I found, just playing with it just now, was to just make this windshield not quite so rounded. So if we hit Alt-H, we can unhide that lattice, and we can just tab in here and just select all of that and then scale it on the y-axis until it's quite a bit more flat. More like a car windshield, you know, rather than this crazily round item that we got there. So now we just need to fix up the surrounding area a little bit. So just select that, make sure your proportional editing's turned on so it gets all that, drag it down, and then also make sure since we had the shape key of open mouth selected when we were adjusting that, it made it part of that. But we can do the shape propagate like we did on the teeth earlier, so no big deal. So just get that lined up to where it needs to be, and then go ahead and do the top as well. We'll go ahead and leave that ball cap looking thing, the little visor, leave that over his eyes like that. That'll be fine. So we can just do like so. Okay, let's go ahead and hide that eyelid now. Go ahead and hide that. And Alt-G, move that out of the spot, put it back where it needs to go, up here. Good. And scale that on the x-axis a little bit so they're a little more round. And you can see now it behaves quite a bit better now that it's flattened out. So, if we were to go to rendered view, you can get, ooh, that looks ugly. Looks better on texture view. What about material view? You can't even see it on material view, can you? Texture view. Okay, so let's make sure this one that we're looking at is the glossy one. So cut that off. Should be able to see it. Go to windshield and make sure the lattice is at the top. So go back to windshield, and it's not. So we'll go boop, or actually boop there. So now if we go to rendered view, there we go. So we get that. Where's it at here? Eye controller empty. So there we go. Move that over. See, it kind of looks weird, but you can also rotate it as you animate so it goes down to the corner like it's supposed to. So that helps out quite a bit, just flattening that windshield out quite a bit. Helps out quite a bit, flattening it quite a bit. So, okay, so that's how you get the nice glossy Pixar look to the eyes, to the windshield. You want it relatively flat. You can put a little bit of a curve into it, but the more curve you put, the more distorted it's going to get as you go towards the edges. So that's that. Let's go ahead and keep going with this. I mean, hopefully that answered any questions you had about how to do that in general. If you followed like the Jeep tutorial and you want to apply this to that, go feel right ahead. But we're going to keep trucking along here. I'm going to go ahead and make those rivets smaller like I was talking about, and just play with the overall materials a little bit more, make them look a little more, worn by the sea. Maybe put some rust here and there. But yeah, so that's that part. If you want to keep going, we'll keep watching. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and save this. And let's jump back into Photoshop. Excuse me, Photoshop, where I still have this layered version of our texture map. And I'm just gonna grab, that should be all one piece still. Just gonna go ahead and Control T, and let's cut that down to half. So let's say 50%. Go ahead and hit that little chain there so it makes it 50% all the way across. And just grab that, move it up here, rotate it a little bit, like so. Maybe a little more, I'll zoom in some. Okay, just duplicate that. If I can keep grabbing the right one. Okay, it's kind of hard working such a small window. I guess I could record it full screen, but I don't want the resolution to mess with my recording software on accident. Okay, and then this one needs to go on the other side, doesn't it? So let's change the angle there to there. Oops. I'll make it smaller. Okay, go and move that back up. And looks like I need a little bit further away. Okay. And then we'll do the same thing over here. Let's go ahead and just delete these two things and just duplicate what we just finished. Control T. And go ahead and set it to a negative there. Okay. Then it needs to go. Uh-oh. Let's undo. I don't know where to put it on this other one. There we go. We'll just leave that there as a visualizer. And if I can grab everything I need to grab. Well, shoot. Come on. We'll just do this. Is that right? This thing needs to be at the bottom. Yeah, then change the shadow here to the opposite side. There we go. Okay, so that's good along the sides. Let's zoom in on the top part. Scale that way down. Actually, let's just go ahead and Control T and just set it to locked 50%. There. Just duplicate that up. Hold down Alt. There we go. A little bit more. And go ahead and just delete that one. Drag these over. Rotate. You know what? So you don't have to sit here and watch me do this. menial task. I'm going to pause recording and just keep doing this all over where these rivets are. Just make them all smaller, and we'll bring that back into Blender, and then I'll continue recording after that, so you don't have to sit through this boring mess. Okay, so I've got all the little rivets added in there. It's very tedious work, but I got some around the propeller housing, and then along the sides, and around the top, and then around this little lip thing around the top of his, well, along the bottom of the top. And like I said before, that's a nice little cartoony look, so if you want to call that good with your textures, then feel free to go ahead and skip to the next part. I think I'll probably get into some general rigging in the next part, but I'm going to keep going with a little bit more realistic type textures. Going to go add a little bit more realism to it. And there's a website you can go where you can get free texture maps called cgtextures.com, and it's got a lot of different materials you can choose from. So I'm going to go and find some metal, and we can see aircraft panels perhaps. That might probably work just as well for submarine panels. So let's find some nice big open spots here. There might be too much busyness going on some of these. Yeah, let's just see. Let's look at bare, just bare metal. No. Base, beams, corrugated plates, rusted. Kind of old barns falling in, and if you make a model of that, you can get some really cool textures for that. Seams and welds, maybe that'll work. Something like that. Yeah. Let's see what we got here. Rivets. There we go. That's what I'm wanting. Riveted panels. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, so that first one, let's see. Let's look at the second page real quick. Yeah, let's go back to that first page. I think let's give this one a shot here. And you have to log in to download. It's free to make an account. I've already made one, so let me go ahead and log in here. And not exactly sure what my password is. We'll try a couple of different ones. And that was correct. Okay. No, don't save. Alright, so let's refresh this page. And there's a few different pieces we can use here. Don't want that door on there, so these look about the same. They're slightly different. Okay, so let's just click here, maybe get the medium size, and it downloaded it. So I can open it up in my Windows photo viewer, and we'll just right click, open with Photoshop. And we'll just open it right in there, and I want this to be on all the light colored purplish gray. So I've got all these layers of all those rivets, so I'm going to create a folder. I'll call this the rivets. See if I can select all of those. There. Just move those up in there so I can turn that on and off easily. Okay, so now let's grab this, move it over to here, and maybe make it a little smaller. And everywhere that we have that color, I'm going to grab my magic wand and select that color, make sure contiguous is not turned on. And everywhere that we have that color, it's going to select that. So I'm going to copy, Control-C, Control-V, and then I'm going to use that as a clipping mask. So let's grab this metal here, drag it down to here, right click and say Create Clipping Mask. So now it's going to be wherever that material is, it's going to add it in there, just in that spot. So let's arrange this and kind of just get some randomness going on here. Maybe make that a little bigger. Let's go ahead and drop these. Actually, put those inside the clipping mask. Well, let's just turn that off, I guess. And we'll, oops, grab all these. Duplicate them down here all. And over like so. Maybe down here. Maybe up here. Actually, I'm duplicating way too many. I don't need that many for some of these spots like this. And then one right up here. Although I don't think that one's necessary because it's looks like it's just an overshoot from the teeth. Okay, so now let's grab all of those. There's quite a few of them, isn't there? Double click on there. There we go. Grab all those. Let's go ahead and merge them into one. Merge layers. So it's all one big layer. And let's set the transparency down just a bit so we still got some of that original color. And come back up here, turn those rivets back on. Go ahead and Control-Shift-S, save that as. Replace the original, yes, into Blender. And in the meantime, I also split this window up. It was like this with your material nodes over here, but you split it up. Bink, change this to UV Image Editor, and we can go to the Material Diffuse Color and say Image, Reload Image, and it'll reload that fresh image. That'll give us a nice metallic, metal-plated, a little more realistic submarine type of thing. Now it's underwater, so it's not, things aren't really that shiny underwater, but we can go ahead and add a little bit of a glossiness to it just for visualizations here. So I'm just going to add a new shader, mix shader. Go ahead and pop that into there. And then we'll add a new shader glossy. And just drag that down to there. Oops. There we go. And set the factor to, let's see, 0.95? No, 0.05. Kind of just depends on which way your nodes are set up here. So that looks a little better, huh? You can get it even more shiny if we go 0.1. That affects the size of the glare. And 0.1 is pretty small. And if you don't want it quite that shiny, you can go ahead and make it even smaller, 0.03. And maybe set the roughness to, say, 0.2. Make it have a little bit of a gloss to it, but not quite real shiny. Okay, so I'm going to make... Tell you what, this purplish color is kind of bugging me a little bit now that I've started playing with some more realistic textures in there. So let's go back to our CG textures here, and I want to find a rusty texture, or bronze, see if we got anything bronzy in here. Got some bronze. Not really like I'm looking for, like I'm thinking. Kind of something like this, but a little more bronze. I guess if all else fails, I can just get that image and then manipulate it in Photoshop, put a little more tan or a brownish, reddish color. Here we go. Yeah, that'll work. Let's get this one here. Pop that one open. Open with Photoshop. And this one, all the purplish stuff. So let's do the same thing we did with the other. The magic wand, select this dark purplish. Control-C, Control-V, and then we will grab our bronze, move it in here, and set that as a clipping mask. There. Okay, let's make it a little smaller, so we get a little more of that detail in there. And then we can just drag it as we need. Don't want that white glare on there, because that'll just kind of throw things off. Oops. Bring that up to here. And then finally over to there. Okay, and tell you what, since we're going kind of a bronzy color, let's merge all these layers together like we did on the other. And let's go into our image adjustments, hue saturation. Let's give them a little bit more saturation, a little bit darker. Maybe a tiny bit more of a reddish tint. Okay. And now let's kind of do the same thing on the other plates. Give them a different color, a little bit. More of a brownish. Not seeing any change there. Set the fill all the way back up. image adjustments, hue, saturation way up. There we go. Maybe give it a colorize. Yeah, that helps. More of a brown color. There we go. About like that. Yeah, give this a nice steampunk look. Okay, so we don't really got the blends in here like I would like. So let's get the eraser tool. Maybe we can give that a nice softer edge there to the inside of the mouth. So let's do this here. There we go. That's better. And then up here. Okay. Maybe this will look pretty good. Let's go ahead and save this. The original's still there. If we decide we don't like it, we can always go back to the original. And also, before we do that, let's add... let's go into the rivets. I don't know if this will work or not. Let's go in here to the top layer of the rivet folder and add a adjustment layer. Hue saturation. That might affect the whole thing, though. Say OK. Yeah, I just want it to only affect the rivets. So, yes, delete that layer and get rid of this thing. Okay, so I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to duplicate that rivets folder, hide the old one, and then I'm just going to collapse all of these layers into one. And then I can go image, adjustments, hue, saturation. Change those to a nice coppery color as well. Go ahead and colorize that. Nice brownish. I like so. There we go. Okay, now let's see what this looks like here on our actual model there. So replace that. Back to Blender and go ahead and image, reload. And we missed part of it, so I'll need to fix that. But overall, yeah, you know what? I think I like that a lot better. I like it. I like it a lot. Alright, so let's go back to Photoshop and fix that problem areas. Okay, yeah, I missed a big one right there. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Just select some of this. Control-C, Control-V. Just drag that down, make sure that's under the clipping mask as well. Just drag it to there, that layer. And is that the only problem? But there was some mess up around here too. Let's look. Okay, all that bottom part's fine. Just the top part. Okay. So now if we save this, back to Photoshop. Go ahead and save. Save, 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 replace. Blender, image, reload. There we go. That looks a little better. Okay. Now his mouth looks a little too purple inside there. We should change that. But in any case, that's how you can get some nice looking textures. I'm not going to waste any more time on this part 4. I might keep going with the adding the detail to the textures. You don't have to if you don't want to, but feel free. The more you do, the better it's going to look. But in the next part, we'll go ahead and start giving him a little bit of a rig. So I might even change his eye color to brown or something to match the rest of the stuff. But in any case, that's all for part 4. So thanks for watching. Go ahead and save that, and we'll see you in part 5.